The American Federation of Ramallah, Palestine was created back in 1952 by recent immigrants from that Palestinian community. They established a magazine and then ultimately established some regional organizations, clubs, one of which is in Jacksonville back in 1959. And now, through the years, these programs have grown exponentially. We're all familiar with what the Arab American community is doing in Jacksonville. They're a major part here, from restaurants to attorneys to pharmacies to doctors, you name it, they're doing it, and they become a major part. And then the first convention or family reunion was held in Detroit back in 1959, and since then it's been twice in the city of Ramallah, and now it comes to Jacksonville instead of Ramallah because of what is happening there. And so let's talk about right now what is happening here. John, why is it here? How did the decision get made to bring it here, and how can you bring home here?
Well, everybody was looking forward to having our convention, which is really a convention, but it's really more a family reunion. I mean, it's but when everybody was planning on taking their family, I was taking my children, my grandchildren. I mean, we were looking forward to going back to the hometown of of our family and my parents and grandparents and when October 7th came about, we just were kind of alarmed of what was going on, and after several weeks, we didn't think we didn't know when this thing was going to end, so we decided we need to look at maybe a plan B just in case this thing lingers on. Hopefully it doesn't, but it has. And we looked around at different places to host it. We looked in Washington, D.C., we looked at going to Orlando, we looked at several places, and nothing was really available that we could actually host the convention in, and just by accident or by chance we checked with the Marriott Sawgrass in Ponte Vedra, where we had our convention there 3 years prior in 2021, and they said, well, we don't have the first week in July available, but we have the second week in July available. So that's what it is, and we met with them, and then we actually decided, and they were happy to have us back, and so far everything's worked out very well. We only had 6 months to put this thing together, but thank God it's all kind of come together, and we're hopefully going to have a great time this weekend.
So is there a greater interest this year because of what's happening back home? And will people from there be able to get here to make it a true reunion?
Well, it's somewhat restrictive for the people to travel from there to here, but it's kind of taken on a little different look than a typical convention, which is usually a little more festive. This one is kind of a little bit more about solidarity and with some of the speakers that we're having, like Miko Peled, and we got Mark Lamont Hill as our keynote speaker. We've got a play that talks about the 1948 Nakba. It's called Taha. So there's a lot of things a little more different, so kind of less festive, but more informative and more about solidarity with Palestine and what's going on, in Gaza.
And speaking about speakers, Mika, here you are, an Israeli, but you're speaking at a Palestinian convention. So what's your background, and how do you become involved as an activist on Palestinian rights?
Well, thanks. Thanks for that question. So the easiest way to answer that is there's a book. It's called The General Son: Journey of an Israeli in Palestine, and so the book answers the question at length. But the short answer is that I was born and raised as an Israeli. My father was a general in the Israeli army. I have family members who were important people in the creation of the state of Israel. But then at one point, I embarked on what I call the journey of an Israeli into Palestine, because as an Israeli, you don't know that there's a Palestine. The country is completely segregated. So you live in this bubble, and you believe that that's the only thing that exists. And for reasons that I explain, a lot, in the book, I get into in the book, I decided to embark on this journey and discovered that I was actually, excuse me, born and raised in Palestine, but in a colony that is called Israel, in a colony that is completely segregated, where people like me, who look like me and speak like me, exist, whose grandparents and parents came from other countries. And actually, the people who have been living in this country since time immemorial are living in an entirely different reality. And so the more I met, the more I learned, the more I traveled, the more I became interested. And really the point of no return in a situation like this is when you meet Palestinians. When I met Palestinians and started to engage and speak to Palestinians. And that happened here in the United States with Palestinian communities, who later on people became my friends eventually, and then people in Palestine itself throughout the entire country as I traveled around. So that was the journey, and that journey led me to a point where I had to make a decision whether where do I stand on this issue? Because you can't have it both ways. You either support freedom and justice, or you support oppression and racism. You can't have it both ways. And what was liberating on the one hand, but also very difficult, is to realize that my background was built on segregation and racism and violence. And I felt I can no longer condone that. So I rejected Zionism, and I rejected this whole premise of the justification and legitimacy of the apartheid state, which is known in Israel as Israel. And this became I dedicated myself to this, to talking about this. And because of my background, I seem to have a voice. So I use it.
There are so many countries in this world who have a separation issue. That they've had people who live there and other people who live there but cannot be part of. This is obviously just the latest that has come forward. You mentioned apartheid, obviously, in South Africa. They went through that, and then even now there's some fractures in that's happening. So how did you end up being a speaker at this family reunion, which is basically a worldwide reunion? It's a voice, I guess, they want to hear.
Well, you'd have to ask John that, but of course, I speak at many gatherings, Palestinian gatherings, and like I said, because of this unique situation that I'm in, where I've got this particular background, but I speak on what people would consider to be the other side. I get invited, and I'm very fortunate to have been invited to this great event. I'm looking forward to it.
And obviously, John, you indicate that this is normally a festive event, and now you've got a world-wide event or world knowledgeable event that is overshadowing it. So what are you looking forward to hearing from your guest speakers, and what do you maybe hope comes out of this weekend? Is it strengthen family ties plus solidarity plus understanding?
Well, I think solidarity, and I think that, we attract a lot of younger people to these events. And I think it's kind of educational for them to kind of know really what the situation is, because, looking at mainstream media, you're not getting the true picture of what's going on over there, or what's actually why it's there. Just like, like some of these things you see on Facebook, they say, well, this thing didn't start October 7th, it started in 1948. But most people in America don't know that, and even the younger Palestinians don't know that. So this is kind of going to be somewhat educational for them and informative, and hopefully, that they'll embrace it and want to be more active and spread the word.
If you're just joining us, we're talking with the organizers and participants of this year's Ramallah Convention, which is being held on the First Coast this weekend. You can join the conversation live on air by calling 904-549-2937. You can also email us at firstcoastconnect@wjct.org or reach out on social media. Well, what is the role of the Ramallah American Club anyway, John? I mean, I've lived near that building for most of my 40 years here in the city. I love the fountain. I love the wrought iron gates. I know it's a voting precinct. But what else? What else does it do?
Well, we kind of call it our second home, because the beauty behind the Ramallah community internationally, and not just nationally or not just locally, that we're all descendants of 5 sons that founded our hometown, which is Christian Palestinian town in the 1500s. So there are about 40,000 of us that are all descendants of these 5 sons, and there's about maybe 5 or 6,000 of us that live in Jacksonville. So we're one of the affiliates of our national organization, which is AFRP, which is headquartered in Michigan, and there's about 26 clubs and communities throughout the country that it's basically social, educational, you know, and fellowship, brotherhood. I mean, it's all those good things. I mean, we, like our local club, we have an area in the back that maybe 20 to 25 older guys like me go every day for a couple of hours. They hang out, they chit chat, they play rummy, they watch the news, converse. So it's
It sounds like a town square in many an old world community.
It is, and it's it's great to be around people that you grew up with, and it's a brotherhood.
Well, you talk about brotherhood. We've got a caller, Charles, on the west side. Charles, you got an interesting question. Charles, you're on the air.
Hey, good morning. John, by the way, I went to school back in the 70s with a fella named Ricky Rucab, and I was just wondering, any relation, but are you guys able to Skype or FaceTime Ramallah back or anything in the West Bank, or has those communications been cut off by Israel?
No, there's not so much there. I think in Gaza, I think a lot of those things are kind of very limited and there. But Ramallah, it's still, I mean, you can still communicate with everybody in Ramallah. Ramallah's almost kind of in a bubble so much, and it's not a lot going on in there. But you go outside, and there's issues with roadblocks and somewhat harassment and stuff and everything. But there's no communication issues with Ramallah pretty much.
Mika, what are your thoughts as you hear what he is saying about what's happening in his hometown, and that it is your community and their community? Just what you're hearing from him. Any thoughts about what he's just talking about now?
Well, that's the reason I'm in this to begin with. I mean, I was born and raised in Jerusalem. I'm from, when people ask me where I'm from, I say I'm from Palestine, and I visit there, regularly, and so I mean, I'm very much in touch, and I'm aware, and I've been to, of course, to Ramallah many times, and I have friends there, and what John is describing is very true. I mean, to get from Jerusalem to Ramallah, it shouldn't be more than a 20-minute drive. But it could take you up to 2 hours because there's this massive checkpoint, and there's roadblocks, and there's all these limitations that Israel has created to make life unlivable, even if in a place like Ramallah. And all the towns and cities that lead up to Ramallah have become ghost towns because Israel created all these roads that bypass the Palestinian towns, and it basically bankrupted the Palestinian businesses that existed in those towns. So, like John was saying, Ramallah is a bubble, and it's a very nice bubble. I mean, everybody likes to go to Ramallah to eat, to go out, to meet friends, but everything around it is like ghost towns. It's become ghost towns, and then you've got Israeli settlements, Israeli colonies that are just choking more and more of the city, just like they do throughout all of Palestine.
And even the basic supplies can't get in.
Oh, it's terrible. I mean, it's to try to drive into Ramallah from any of the cities around it is a major task. To go from Bethlehem to Ramallah, which shouldn't take you again more than a half-hour drive, it could take hours and hours and hours because the main roads are not available to Palestinians. They have to drive on all kinds of side roads. I mean, the segregation and the separation, not only between Israeli communities and the Palestinian communities throughout the entire country, not only the West Bank, but between Palestinian communities and each other. For kids to go to school, they used to be able to go to school a 10-minute walk. Now they have to drive for 2 hours. This is not uncommon. And I remember the first time I took a bus from Jerusalem to Ramallah, and I'm sitting next to this older gentleman, and I asked him, how long does the bus take? How long does the ride take? And he looked at me like I was out of my mind. He goes, there's no way of knowing. Nobody knows how long the bus ride is going to take. It could take 20 minutes. It could take 3 hours. We have no way of knowing because it's not up to us. We have no control of our time. We have no control of the roads. So that's the reality, and that's exactly what John, and that's exactly why I and people like myself are in this to end this madness.
You know, we had hoped to be joined today by Issa Kassis. He's the mayor of the West Bank city of Ramallah. Yeah, but obviously there's a conflict that he's got, and it's an interesting one. He's scheduled to speak to the UN this morning in New York City. So First Coast Connect host Ann Schindler was able to speak with him via video recently from Ramallah. So let's take a listen.
Thank you very much. Good morning to you. Thank you very much for hosting me.
Thank you for being here. So there's much discussion these days about what's happening in Gaza, but what is life like for Palestinians in the city of Ramallah and in the West Bank in general?
Well, yes, indeed, a total frustration every day for 6 months plus now. Economic slowdown, big time, and the situation in the West Bank is boiling as far as we can see it and how we read the street. People are totally frustrated. Every day, news are worse than the news the day before, and there's little that people can do here in the West Bank because of the separation, between cities, etc. So we are living under occupation. On top of this, we are suffering in the West Bank, the pain in Gaza, the war in Gaza, the killing of people in Gaza. Put aside the daily incursions in the West Bank. Totally every city, Ramallah is not an exception. So the situation is very, I would say, frustrating. And now, as how I see it, it's boiling. Nothing in the horizon as far as people see it. People at the economic level are suffering. 180,000 workers, Palestinian workers, used to work in Israel, has been suspended for the past 6 months plus now. They are at home. Savings are totally exhausted, and so on and so forth. So it's bad. It's bad, honestly.
For people who aren't aware of kind of what the life situation is there, explain to us in terms of Israeli forces, interactions with them, whether you're seeing drone strikes, what kind of destruction is happening in cities around the West Bank.
Well, first, there are daily incursions from the settlers and the Israeli forces. We used to experience daily incursions of Israeli forces coming into towns, killing, arresting, etc. But now there are attacks from the settlers at the cities, at the outskirts of the cities, and sometimes they go inside the cities. There is. According to Oslo Agreement, there is the zoning of the cities is Area A, which is the city center, Area B, slightly outside the city center, and Area C is the suburb or the rural areas, which are under the administrative and security control of the Israelis. So the settlers are situated in Area C, and they attacked Area A and B. This has been going on for long now, and what is new today is that settlers are not only attacking people, but they are shooting because they are armed, and this is relatively new in the streets. We don't often see them armed. Today we see them armed, and this adds to the problem, because it's really hard to stop people from the intimidation of the settlers. Who come especially at nights or late afternoon and evenings, and people traveling between cities face these settlers and create there are some clashes between them, and you can see in the news that there are almost, on average, every day we lose one life in the West Bank, put aside Gaza. This is totally unprecedented since 1967. And that's why I say it's boiling here, and the system is not accommodating this. I mean, the PA is not ready, does not have the enough police forces to to control or to even coordinate or cooperate with the other side for the sake of slowing down the attacks and stopping them gradually. The Israeli government is encouraging them and obviously not stopping them. What worries me the most now is that they are armed, and this is as I said, this is unprecedented and is creating a pressure on us at local governments and the central government from to avoid any clashes between people, because what we want today is the ceasefire in Gaza and try to rebuild and to reconnect with Gaza and try to help as much as we can with the very limited resources that we have. The challenge remains big and getting bigger, honestly.
So you took office in April 2002, a little over 2 years ago. How has the job changed? How is it different from what you expected?
Yes, I took over in April 2022, and what is different about Ramallah? Ramallah hosts also the central government. I mean, the government and the president and all the security departments, everything, all the banks, headquarters, companies, insurance companies, etc. The stock market, all are centralized in Ramallah. The role that Ramallah municipality plays go beyond a normal municipality or local government things to do. So the national role that we play, the cultural role that we play on the ground, the idea of creating better people who are committed to the land, people who want to build, to people who are committed to have a better future for the children. These are things that are within the core of our business, and this has been dramatically changed, and now our priorities are totally different. Today we just want to support Gaza. We go for campaigns with the universities, with the youth in the streets, with the private sector, trying to provide Gaza with the minimal things that they need. These are things that are getting our priority today. Of course, closure of the city due to the daily incursions of the Israeli forces and the settlers created an economic slowdown, and we have a role to provide what we call the LED, the local economic development. We play a crucial role and a cornerstone in mobilizing resources for the sake of creating jobs for especially the youth and the young and the women, and we're doing very well in that until October 7th, when the whole paradigm is shifting, and this also worked negatively on our budgets. So we need to spend more and do less, in the sense that we had to freeze some very important projects that had to do with, for example, waste management, wastewater treatment, seasonal markets for promoting vegetation, or for promoting some products that the youth make and sell in the streets, trying to do activities that support the entrepreneurs. Our innovation hub has been out of business for the past 6 months or so. So our priorities are shifted, and for me as a mayor, taking care of the city and making sure that the city provides a better place for people to live, work, prosper, excel in life, has been threatened. And as I said, our priorities are different. So the first 2 years plus were very okay with us, and we got a world recognition at the cultural level, at the smart cities level, at resilient cities level, sustainable cities level. We participate almost every other month in an international event where Ramallah provides an experience of how a city under occupation is excelling in the sustainable development goals that are major for local governments to provide better place for the people. And as I said, this has shifted drastically for the past 8 months, and our priorities shifted accordingly.
And the conversation obviously changed. The role of mayor changed after the brutality of the October 7th incident, but there seems to be a changing conversation about what a return would look like, and perhaps a new understanding that a return to what was before wouldn't be acceptable because of the life of the Palestinian people and the lack of freedom of movement, for instance, or other freedoms that they do not have currently.
Well, this is also a very crucial and very important point to mention here. As I said, we're not a local government that provides classic products and services, and this has worked. To our disadvantage, because the mobility of people from and to Ramallah is now stopped 100%. Cities are closed. Mobility between cities is almost zero. If you want to cross to neighboring Jordan through the borders there, you have to drive no less than 4 hours to reach the borders, which is usually a 30-minute drive. Why? Because of extra checkpoints and detours that you need to take because of the settlers. Ramallah is a very vibrant city and almost does not sleep on weekends. So Thursday night, Friday night, even sometimes Saturday night, Ramallah open until 4 in the morning. Today at 9:30 closed, nothing there, and this has affected the I would say not local tourism, but Ramallah being a hub for people to come for culture and lifestyle and has stopped, and I believe it will take us long to recover from this. Although we have a beautiful recovery plan that we exercised post COVID, but COVID is nothing to compare to the situation in Gaza and what we live here in the West Bank. Recovering and reviving from this brutal occupation is not something that I can honestly describe in words. Just to pinpoint another very important point, and I want the world to know it through your good selves, that Ramallah and Palestine has been under occupation for the past 76 years. Occupation did not start 7 months ago or 6 months ago. We are a country under occupation and try to manage within very limited not independence, but very limited access to everything. I cannot transfer the solid waste to the landfill. To that extent we suffer, and that's before October 7th. Why? Because the settlers, after this brutal government of Israel is taking over, and the quality of the ministers and their messages to their people, to the settlers, to us as Palestinians here, threatening day and night, makes it very hard and almost impossible to fill in a truck with like 30 tons of solid waste to move it north to Jenin, where the landfill is. Today I cannot do that. I've been suffering, and we have our transfer plant is piled up with solid waste, and the list is long of of the challenges that we lived and continue living after October 7th.
Well, Mayor Issa Kassis, Mayor of the West Bank city of Ramallah, thank you so much for speaking to us and talking to us about the circumstances there.
Thank you very much.
So Anna's just giving you a little window on the world of what's happening across the ocean right now. And then this weekend, obviously, the 65th annual Ramallah Convention in Sawgrass will open a window locally. Is it open to the public, John? I mean,
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
and
Absolutely.
what can they expect there, just very briefly?
Well, there's, we've got symposiums scheduled. We have a great play about the 1948 Nakba, which was kind of the expulsion of the Palestinian people. It's called Taha.
It's actually about the poet Taha.
Yes.
It's about the famous Palestinian poet
Right,
Taha, and his
right.
experience. Yes, it's a great play.
So that's Friday evening. Where we'll have a concert with Simone Shaheen. His orchestra plays classical Arabic music, and then we'll have some other other entertainments also as well.
Quickly, Miko, we said it off air. What's that last little phrase that you want people to hear?
Last little phrase that I want people to hear is I'm the president of an organization called Palestine House of Freedom in Washington, D.C., and our mission is to end the suffering, to bring about a free Palestine from the river to the sea, to dismantle the racism and the violence, the regime, the apartheid regime that brings about the racism and the violence, and to allow Israelis and Palestinians to live free and in peace together.
In peace together. All right. Miko Peled, John Rukab, thank you so much for joining the program today.